morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are listening to us. We are grateful that you are listening to us. And we are here for our, let me get this right, 10th episode. And you brought a great guest.
Dr. Crystal Morrison. I'm excited for our listeners to hear this one. So she is, I do the intro later. I won't try again. But she's a lot of cool things. And we really just jumped into some really great conversation. I'm excited for people to tune in. This is a juicy one.
And you know what I love about our podcasting experience is we're getting to a point where we don't have to pre-game too much. Like we go in with we're going to have a authentic conversation and pull out the information.
You had years of podcasting before this where I hadn't. So you were kind of always like, don't worry, the conversation takes care of itself. And I was like, what are we going to ask? What's the game plan? I fell into just by my life getting too chaotic and I couldn't keep up with anything. And now I'm just like, oh, today's a podcast. Who's the guest? And I don't know what we're asking. So it was more out of chaos that I've fallen into this, but I do think it makes it so much more interesting because there's no plan, no agenda. It's just truly inviting people on the program that I have seen live a life where they're chasing that self-actualization. They're very authentic, and I'm thinking, we got to ask some questions and let people know what they're up to.
Well, I had one of the moments in the interview, which everyone will get to experience, where how I'm showing up today is probably not the most self-actualized way to show up, which was I'm inherently just seem to be angry at a whole gender of human beings.
I liked what you said when you were talking with Dr. Crystal. You were saying you're wanting to turn this into pro-female.
Yes.
And as I will say it now, I'm pregnant with my fourth son.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So as a mother raising, now 4 boys, I think it's so important for women to have their space, but it's so important that we don't diminish men in the process of that because, and I know that's even controversial to say because of the current climate, but there is a way for us to promote women and give them that space without allowing it to put anything negative in our hearts towards men. And so I think...
Oh, that stuff's been in my heart, sorry. It's not new. Those have been in there. And I've been trying, I think when we first met, I remember telling you I really want to get softer. I was trying to get more feminine. Your energy, meaning like...
Corporate experience with, for 30 years in the corporate space, and I think there'd be so much healing for you to see some of what's coming up in technology right now with these younger men in the corporate space because it is a different playing field and there's a lot more respect in that space than what you had to go through. But that's the trauma of your experience.
And I'm a Gen Xer. I think that's part of it. I'm grumpy. And I do have this, I kind of discussed it in the previous episode with Dr. Shirley Davis. I'm deconstructing a lot of biases, and I'm realizing where I am presently at 51 is that I do hold resentment and anger at a lot of what's happening in the world, and I do put that at the feet of the patriarchy. Mm-hmm. And so, it's coming out. It came out in our interview, and I was like, I loved her, and I love women, and I love your boys. I haven't met them, but I love your boys.
But yours.
And mine. But I am in this place in my life where I feel very critical of this entire gender. And I really just want to, light a fire under women. And I don't want them to feel like they're not likable, lovable, or worthy. And that's one of my passions right now. And I think it kind of seeped in on a couple interviews, and I'm like, I need to rein that in because that's not very self-actualized.
Your self-awareness is incredible, and I've been having self-awareness for certain aspects of myself lately as well. And when we can, and for me, really, it's not gender-related, but I've just noticed I've become kind of critical, and it's not a personality trait that I really want to grow and take into the next decade. So, but I think out of that, for me to flip the script and say, well, I can tend to be critical because excellence is important to me. That's what I produce in my work, and that's my expectation. And I like that you were saying, the flip script of this is that you really want to support and promote female leadership, and it is something that needs the support of role models like you who are taking those steps. So
that's a long way of saying I love our male listeners, and I apologize if I gender bashed you in any of our. Can't promise it won't happen again.
And tune into the episode and take a shot every time she gender bashes. Hello and welcome to Chasing Self-Actualization. Today we have Dr. Crystal Morrison, who is an accomplished scientist, leader, strategic advisor, TEDx speaker, and author. Thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Crystal.
You're welcome. So happy to be here.
It's great to talk with you.
I want to jump in on the scientist part because it just excites all my.
Oh, good. Me too.
It's like a STEM girl. No, so tell me. Before we get into self-actualization and what you think about it, tell us a little bit about your story and how you ended up on TEDx and all of that. But then I want to deep dive into the scientist part.
So I'll give you the very abbreviated version. I'm originally from Arkansas, and I always wanted to be a scientist from as long as I can remember, doing little experiments in my house. And I went to college and got my degree in chemistry. And then I went on to get my PhD in polymer science engineering. And I had a very traditional career path. I did a postdoc and went into industry. Over my career, I really grew as a leader and was really interested in exploring different aspects of business and leadership and entrepreneurship. And so I definitely have had a traditional career as a scientist, but over the past definitely 6 to 8 years, I've had an opportunity to explore other things that are related to personal interest and entrepreneurship. And so, yes, I'm definitely a scientist at heart, and I love solving problems. And I just view my career and even where I'm at today as being centered around solving problems and loving to bring together teams of really great people to solve that problem, whatever it might be.
I love that. I have to say, in the last few weeks, I've been interviewing marketing firms, and I had this realization of, it's not even unconscious, it's totally conscious bias, that the lead generator were women, totally interested. Got in the room with the salesperson that was men, and my bias just came up. And I was kind of praying about it, like, why am I so, I know why from 30 years in corporate America. I know where my bias comes from. But I realized in this timing how female leadership is like so important to me. 17 years as a Girl Scout leader, 7 Girls Gold Award. And in the last few weeks, I was like kind of sitting comfortably with my bias and being like, I think I want to spend the next couple years focusing on young girls and giving them the knowledge that they're worth it, like themselves, love themselves, and you're worthy of everything. And so I'm excited to have you on here because she told me that you did a TED Talk on leadership.
Yep.
So I love our male listeners. I'm not trying to, but really focused on the female leadership and you being a strong female leader. What do you think about female leadership and how we can inform a younger audience to not have to do the things that we did, to make ourselves smaller, to fit into a room, give someone else the idea for them to take it and run with it. All these things that I did in corporate America, I'll take full ownership for it. But I didn't have female leaders saying, hey, you know what? Walk into that room because all those guys put on their pants one leg at a time. And to quote,
I have that quote, literally sticky note here on my computer screen. Yes.
So how do you speak to young girls or female leaders? And right now I am coming at it at an aggressive way. Like I'm very biased against men right now in my life. But I wanted to flip that to being really pro young ladies and women and giving them the
Yeah.
strength and knowledge?
So I answer this actually in two ways based on my own experience. And so the first way is that very traditional, when I work with young women or young leaders in general, really encouraging them to take that seat at the table, to ask questions, to stop apologizing, to stop, backing down or deferring to others in the room. Um, so, little things that I would do in the boardroom when different people would come in, whether it be to, present or engage in conversation, they would often, sit at the edge of the room when there was very clearly seats at the literal table. And I would make space for them at the literal table. And I think it's by doing things like that that are really powerful, and they're really powerful examples. So that being strong, taking a seat at the literal table, sitting up straight, making eye, some of these very basic things that a lot of times as women we tend to sabotage ourselves on by not taking that seat at the table, shying away, maybe not sitting up, quite as straight, just these different things with body language, right? And I got exposed early in my career, I wish earlier, on some of the things that I do in terms of body language that were sometimes self-sabotaging me, and I didn't even realize it. So some of those more traditional coaching things, like I said, that's answer number one. Answer number two, which I have, the second part of this, which I have become really passionate about, and I'll give you a little story. Probably about 6-8 years ago, I was giving a keynote, and this young woman came up to me after, and she was, I admire you so much. You're so put together. You've got your life is amazing. And I sort of felt a slap in my face at that moment. And here's why. Because that morning, I think maybe fed my kids like goldfish crackers for breakfast. And I think I almost put hair gel on my toothbrush. And it was a little like chaos shitstorm in my house. Things are crazy. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? I really appreciate that. But I just realized in this moment that I am giving a really unauthentic version of myself. And so my brand has always been and continues to be a strong woman and a female leader. But I really, in the past several years, leaned a lot more into authenticity. Mm-hmm. And that is, I wish that I had some of my mentors early on, be really honest that their personal life is chaos and kids are flying off playground structures and you're spending your morning in the ER. Like, I really wish somebody had been authentic about some of those things, because I had this impression that I had to have everything together and everything had to be perfect. And I looked at her that moment and I said, thank you so much. But you know what? I fed my kids goldfish crackers last night for dinner, and I'm pretty sure I might have got a little toothpaste in my hair because I thought it was gel this morning, like that sort of vibe. And she just immediately melted with,
I love you even more.
Wow, something like that. But
Dr. Crystal,
I really appreciate hearing that.
This was exactly why I wanted to have you on the program, is because I follow you on Facebook. And when we first met, you were launching some new technology, and it was a very, not business oriented, but, we were having this conversation and I just thought, wow, what a powerful, leader in the tech space. And then you're so authentic. You're so true. You're such a good role model for female entrepreneurs, because you do just talk about all of it. And I think also, Marisol, to your point, and it just kind of was stirring up in me as you were talking, I had the honor of having an incredible female role leader,
Yeah.
role model early on in my early 20s. And I also knew her personal life. So she had sons, and I saw the chaos of home life, met this boss lady, you know, in the meetings. And I mean, she blew my mind. And I had this example, but I think sort of to some of this female leaders, there's a way that, and you were saying our body language and how we show up in the room, it was not it was uncomfortable, but it wasn't foreign to me to speak up at a meeting or to take the seat right next to the CEO because I had seen someone do it. And now, you know, I have 3 sons who are watching. For them, the thought of a woman having less to say in a board meeting would never cross their mind because they have a mother who won't shut up. So I think that there's, in so many ways, we have so much room to improve this, not only by taking that seat, but by raising sons who see that. You know, I'm excited for the next generation. What I see, because I work in recruiting and tech recruiting now, I'm seeing so much more. I get so excited now when I'm trying to close the deal for an offer to a female and she like negotiates, because I didn't see that 15 years ago. She took the offer. You know,
in a 30-year career, I never negotiated my salary.
I'm starting to see it now, and I'm like, you go, girl.
I would take the salary and I would be thankful. I didn't have that. That is so wonderful that you had that.
I had a role model who told me you never take the first offer.
No, and I had the wonderful mentor. He was a CEO. I worked for him many years, many different capacities, and he was always telling me how smart I was, how valuable. It was not him, but what I ended up saying to him towards the end of our tenure together is like, you're not a woman though. Like you can't.
Yeah.
As much as you can't teach me to stop apologizing. When you said that, I glue, because I've been apologizing for my existence since birth. And that feels like just something I inherited as being a female. And so I love that. I love that, you know, you're out there, that we have women out there giving examples to other girls. Because it is true. The younger generation, my daughter, she's 22 and she blows me away. I mean, my
daughter also 15. Yeah.
The way, I mean, it really makes me so happy to think about the future for women, for women. But you know, we jump to that place, but there's still, like me, I'm 51, I'm pivoting my career, and I'm still dealing with how to be authentic. Chasing self-actualization. As I was driving here today, I was not in the mood.
We've talked about this.
I didn't want to be. I just, you know, I was kind of fighting with my husband. Not fighting, but we're just not on the same page right now about something. And that's been just ruminating in my thoughts. And as I was sitting here, you know, parked before we got in, said my prayer, and I'm like, God, you know, just let me get through this, because chasing self-actualization is not, it's a journey. It's every day. It's a choice, and it's a choice to show up, drink the water, do the exercise, pray, meditate, all the things that it's a choice. And from what I've seen of you and what I've heard of you, it seems like it's something that you maybe not directly said, hey, I'm going to chase my own self-actualization, but it seems you are, by pivoting and doing the things and educating yourself in the ways you have. What does that phrase mean to you? Chasing self-actualization.
I've thought a lot about this, primarily because I've never really been posed with the question, you know, what does that mean, and what is it? For me, it's a couple of things. It's becoming more comfortable in my own skin overall. It's become confident in myself as opposed to confident in what people see me as. You know, whether that be a title or a position. You know, I've come to the realization over years that I spent a lot of time chasing happiness that was tied to goals, right? And so I would reach those goals, predominantly professional, and then happiness still wasn't there. And so for me, it's really been becoming comfortable and solid in my own skin and myself as a person and a mother and a human being and a professional, and what all of those things mean, as opposed to relying on all of those things and what people think of me in those capacities for my happiness and for my self-worth. That's really what it means to me in a lot of ways. And every decade of my life, or even every 5 years, has been this sort of evolution. And at this point, I'm excited about getting older because I just
Me
become
too.
way more comfortable with who I am.
Me too. I love it.
What are some ways that you're chasing your self-actualization, or what I have seen of you? Authenticity comes to mind. You don't appear to me to be trying to appear any way other than how you are.
Yeah.
And that comes through. And so I suppose what newfound freedoms has that given you? How has that allowed you to pursue something you maybe wouldn't have, or live in a way that you felt restricted in the past?
Yeah, no, definitely. So, it's allowed me to do things, exploring my interest in entrepreneurship. It's allowed me to pursue some, personal aspects of my life, healthcare advocacy, advocacy for, neurodiversity, for example. It's allowed me to pursue writing a book with a dear friend of mine, and bringing a lot of stories, celebrating neurodiversity forward. So it's given me the freedom to pursue some things that maybe in the past I didn't feel were consistent with my very solid brand as
Yeah.
badass female leader, STEM, etc. And all of it comes together, right?
Mhm.
But it's really allowed me to pursue some things that were outside of my comfort zone, but very, very near and dear to my heart, that I just didn't feel I had the space to do because of those boundaries that
I
I had
love that.
created.
And
Yeah.
I think some people are calling it multi-passionate now, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
we're kind of made to believe that we have one purpose, this one path, this thing we need to accomplish, when we can, and I'm similar to you. I have so many different interests, and I hate
Yeah.
feeling like I have to present with just one.
Sure.
So I
Yeah.
think you've done a great job of modeling that we can show up as we are, with the passions that we have. I know one for you in the neurodiversity space. Are you the co-author of the children's
Yes.
book? Tell us a
It's
little bit
it's
about that.
Yeah, so the book, my dear friend Jeanette Paxia and I, we both have adult sons who are autistic, and one of the things that we have, really struggled with in parallel to growing our careers, one of the things that we've really struggled with is the perception of autism, the perception of neurodiversity, and the when we talk in larger communities and books and in different platforms about autism, or more broadly neurodiversity, we often talk about the challenges. And so, what we wanted to do was create something that, yes, talk about the challenges, but also highlight so many of the gifts and superpowers, if you will, of people who are neurodiverse. So, the book is called Superheroes on the Spectrum, and we brought together 33 people from around the world who are autistic, or who are caring for someone who are autistic, and got them to share their stories with us, and also share about their superpowers, their strengths, their interests, their gifts. And I think one of the things I'm really proud about the book is that not only are we bringing together voices from around the world, it's truly diverse in the sense of neurodiversity. So people who are, representing the entire spectrum, from someone who, the older terminology is high functioning, to someone who is non-speaking, perhaps. and then, you know, young children, adults, people who are diagnosed later in life. And so really just bringing together all of those stories, giving a voice to people, and then at the same time celebrating their strengths.
That's
I
beautiful.
love that.
That's beautiful.
That's amazing.
I have a few friends with children on the spectrum, and I know that they would love or would have loved younger years to have something like that to read
Yeah.
with their kids and stuff. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's so great. I think there's a lot changing in how we talk about autism, even in
right.
my son who's non-speaking on the spectrum. It's going to be 13 this year. So even in the span of his little life, I've seen a lot more of understanding, awareness. We went from, you know, when he was 2, the big push was awareness. And I love seeing that has kind of transcended into, and it's not even acceptance. It's kind of transcended past that, like to honor, to understand, to appreciate what it brings to the table, the importance of that inclusivity. It's not just for the person that you're including. They add an incredible dynamic to the team or the friend group or whatever else. So we're not just doing favors to people. We're actually learning about we're welcoming something that's just so beautiful into our groups.
I have a question for both of you. So for someone who doesn't, I'm assuming I don't, I'm assuming my children are, what's the proper way of saying it? Non-divergent?
Neurotypical.
Neurotypical. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So for how could I help or, you know, what can I take away from this podcast and say if I meet someone who is on the spectrum, what advice would you give us to help honor it or help bring this, you know, more to a medium?
I can say from my perspective, I love if I tell somebody and they say, oh, wow, what's his interest? Or tell me about him. Sometimes people aren't aware of, and I'm very hard to offend because I know people are trying. So don't feel like you have to say things right because you're not going to offend me. But sometimes people will respond like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I just joke, I go, oh, we like him. So for me, it's to just ask about him. I just feel like, you know, just welcome him in because he's just another amazing soul who wants to be loved, who loves in return. So I would say that that's a great way to be inclusive and kind to a family that has a child that has a difference that you might not understand.
That's a great one there. Not saying I'm sorry because that could
Yeah,
be,
don't apologize. It's okay.
I will start with that one.
Just to add to that, because I think that's a perfect response. But the addition to that is so many people will, and I'm guilty of this myself. So many people will assume incompetence. So if there are you know, if the child is non-speaking, or if they're, you know, stemming in public, or if they're, you know, different behavioral aspects, people tend to assume autism and neurodiversity that there's an element of incompetence, and that couldn't be further from the truth.
I feel like some of the smartest people I've met are on the spectrum.
Yes, and we'll tend to think in terms of, like, you know, Asperger's and Rain Man, and Asperger's is an older terminology, but a perfect example in our book. One of the stories was written by a young man who is non-speaking, and he used his devices and augmented technology to write his story. He is brilliant. And for the first probably 20 years of his life, he was assumed incompetent. And so can you imagine, as a human being completely cognizant and absorbing the world around you and learning and having tremendous knowledge, and then people who are interacting with you are assuming that you're incompetent and not intelligent because of either the way you present, or this diagnosis, or the fact that you know, don't speak in a traditional way that we're familiar with. And so you know, I really love that. You don't have to say I'm sorry, but we also need to take it a step further and presume competence first and foremost. in all of our
You're
interactions with each other.
I think that's key and the most important thing. Presume competence. My son has a T-shirt that says "Presume competence." He
Yes,
will
yes, yeah,
display in a way that may make you think he doesn't understand, because
yeah,
he will sometimes. He loves to lick a doorknob. He's very curious. What are they going to taste
mm-hmm.
like? We suspect he might taste colors, so that's like something
Mm-hmm.
that can sometimes happen. So he's just like too curious. He will make a lot of stimming noises. He will tap
Yeah,
things, and he will not respond to the things you say, but he understands absolutely
yes,
everything. If he picks up one thing in the conversation that's of interest to him, if we started talking about like, oh yeah, maybe we'll go swimming, he's going to go put a swimsuit on, come back down. Like there's nothing he's not hearing. And he's so funny. We know him well. Other people
yeah.
don't. So he doesn't like people that assume that he doesn't know what's going on, and he makes it really clear. Like he'll pull away from them and they're like, oh, he doesn't like to be touched, and I'm like, oh, he doesn't like you. So if somebody just talks really casual to him and just treats him like you would treat a 12-year-old boy, he's going to be your best friend, you know? But
Yeah,
I'm so glad you brought that up, Dr. Crystal, because specifically in the non-speaking community, there's a lot of baby talk that happens when people meet him. There's a lot of there's just a lot of assumptions that he is. And we actually, until he was about 8, I did not realize that he understood everything I was saying. So I
sure,
was a part of that too until I became educated. So,
sure,
and now he
sure.
can use a device and he can, let us know a lot more. But I mean, he always had that inside him and wasn't able to express it to us. So it's so important to presume competence.
I love
Yes,
that. I wouldn't
absolutely.
have. I need to incorporate these into my thing. That's beautiful. Okay, so I have one more question.
Oh, I'm good. I love this.
On this subject. So I have 3 children, all adults now, and they had 2 of them had a ADHD diagnosis,
Mhm.
and one of the things I abhorred was the name, um, attention deficit disorder. The
Mhm.
name disorder being attached to my children from second grade on, I had a visceral reaction to it, and I can only imagine as it progresses that there's other things like that. Now you mentioned advocacy in healthcare, and again I lit up because I feel our healthcare system, I'm scared to say this, but I think it does a huge disservice to our children with the way they characterize them, the way they put them into these boxes, and then a couple of years later find out more research and modify it. What can you tell us? What if you had a magic wand and you were in charge of the healthcare system for a period of time? What would you love to see changed in the system?
First and foremost, that healthcare is actually about health,
That would be
because unfortunately in this country it's not remotely about health. And I think one of the biggest things that I see lacking, that makes no sense whatsoever, is that when we look at a person and we look at health, we look at this very, very narrow sliver of data and information. And a person's health is the intersectionality of every aspect of their life. It's about their culture, it's about their socioeconomic conditions, it's about education, it's about where they live, even the neighborhood that they live in, right? It's about environmental aspects. It's about the intersectionality of every single thing around them. And so when we look at someone's health in this country from a medical standpoint, we're looking at them in a doctor's office at one sliver of time with certain data points on their blood pressure, their blood work, et cetera, et cetera. And we are making diagnosis and conclusions and even medicating based on that little tiny percentage of information. And so to really overhaul our system of care, we have to look holistically at everybody and every aspect of their life. That's extremely challenging, but it's also a no-brainer from the standpoint of all of those things are impacting health. And I think that we're getting better from a research standpoint, looking at social determinants of health and having a better understanding of this. However, our system of care in this country, from the way that healthcare system is designed, from insurance, from Medicaid, from Medicare, from all of the systems that are funding healthcare, are not remotely designed to address any of that. And, if it was up to me, I might blow it all up and start over. I mean, I'm careful about using that term, blow it all up. Okay. But really, I would love this, this grand experiment on annihilating the way we think about it and kind of starting from the ground
from
up
scratch. It would be,
yeah.
I worked a lot in the healthcare industry, and I remember this was many, many years ago, before AOL dial-up was still happening. Mm-hmm. That's how long ago it was. And I remember one of our accounts was for a pharmaceutical veterinarian, and we were trying to sell the vets for, I believe it was a 17th injection for cows to increase mass. And I remember this is before kids, and I was like, this is not good. This is not healthy for us. And
oh boy,
having children, and I got teased mercilessly by my ex-mother-in-law. I wouldn't give them cow's milk because there's now a ton of information and stuff, but at the time there wasn't. But just this knowledge of like, how are we giving our food supply 17, 18 shots of hormones that's then given to us? This is, before the documentaries came out and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was an instant of like, I don't trust this at all.
Yeah.
And then I remember teaching my youngest daughter, she was in grade school, and I would teach her the opposite of the food pyramid. And I was like, no, this is
got it wrong.
Junk. This is ketchup is not a vegetable. And she was just, I think I actually kind of maybe messed her up a little bit, because she would go into this place of authority. This is what they were teaching. And there's mom at home going, oh no, food coloring. No. So I think the whole system needs to be broken down, taken apart, and redone with a lot of women in the room. This is my theme for the day, is pro-women.
Yeah.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about it, and it kind of ties in with the authenticity I see in you, Dr. Crystal, and the things that you post, and coming from this place of authority, because this is who you are and what you think. And I think, and also when you're raising a child who's neurodivergent, for me, early on, when he was 2, and the doctor told me, and then they said, and so therefore this is how you need to respond to everything. So with my oldest son, I was very much like, I knew that this body knew how to create him, birth him, feed him. It knows what to do. But then with my next son, I was like, oh, clearly I don't know anything, and I have to give up everything I think I know and follow these steps. And, it took me a few years to remember I innately know what my son's needs are. And I think when we talk about healthcare, it really can start at home with us. We innately know things, and we suspend that to another view because we think, especially if you have a child diagnosed, you kind of throw what you know out the window. At one point, a specialist said, "Trust me, I know whatever." And I said, "Well, I have an 8-year degree in Corbin, so I'll tell you what I know." And that was when I sort of took that seat at the table. Like, we know a lot about what holistically is needed in our lives and for our children.
Also, I want to point out the instinct, because from your story and from my story, we trusted our instinct because society was telling me something different, but my instinct was like, this doesn't jive. And it's something I'm still practicing trusting is my instinct. But in those times, I remember I'm Latin, and we douse our children in baby powder when they come out of the shower. And I remember with my first daughter, my mom was visiting, and this again before, the lawsuits happened, and I was like, no, I think I'm not going to do the powder, the Johnson powder. Yeah. And my mom was like, oh, like, you can't, but it's trusting that instinct. There was something in me that was like, we have a different biology that I just don't know that this should be what we do. And it ended up being right. So trusting our female intuition, I think needs to be in the write-up for this
Yeah,
podcast.
trusting that intuition, and also holding space and grace for ourselves to be empowered to speak to that. Earlier when we were talking about leadership, and then now when we're talking about, our instincts regarding our child, it's really that thread of, I have instincts about something, and I need to feel comfortable to be able to bring that forward. And the same situation with the doctor, for example. I've had plenty of conversations with different professionals, whether it's my care of my children, whether in my own healthcare and caring for, sick parents, where I've said, I understand that you have degrees and you have education in this space, but I'm going to tell you this about this situation, and you need to listen.
Yeah.
And it's taken me a long time to feel comfortable about that. But if anything, I've learned over the years in caring for my children, for myself, for my spouse, for parents, that just because you have a degree in certain things, and I'm saying this myself, I may have a PhD, but I don't know everything. But you don't know everything, and you also don't know every aspect of that person's lived experience that's impacting their health. And when we feel more empowered to speak up, to act on our intuition, to share that level of details, I think overall care in general, can be a lot better.
Yeah. Imagine the world if women were in charge.
I like my sons. Girl, what did you? You're really in a fight with her husband this morning. We love men. We apologize.
Yeah. This isn't related to my husband. I've just been in a very pro-woman. I think it's probably in the United States with the election cycle. I'm just kind of done. So
Yeah,
we'll edit all that out.
We're going to go on a whole other tangent.
That's going to be another podcast I start. Feminine Rage podcast. No, I don't know. It could be because I'm probably having a hot flash as we speak. So. But I've enjoyed so much of the conversation, and I love I haven't met them, but I love your boys in theory.
Oh my gosh, you have to come meet them. They're awesome.
I'm not anti-men. I do, but I just am so encouraged when I get to meet people like you, women. It makes me happy. It makes me happy that you had a woman in your life who said sit next to the CEO. I love all that, and I want that for as many women, young ladies out there in the world. So thank you so much for coming and sharing
you're welcome.
all your expertise with us. And I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm glad that I came and showed up.
Thank you so much for being with us on Chasing Self-Actualization.
And that is another episode of Chasing Self-Actualization. Thank you for joining us. Please make sure to like and subscribe and follow us for more information.
And to learn more about our guest or what we're doing next, you can check out our website at chasingselfactualization.com.